Imagine that one evening you're coming back home when suddenly a thunderstorm covers you. The sky suddenly gets darker and the wind keeps getting stronger until it picks you up and lifts you off the ground. You're swirled in a powerful flow, and your breath is taken away as if you're spinning on a giant carousel. The debris of buildings and uprooted trees are flying around, threatening to collide with you at any second. What is happening? It's simple, you were picked up by one of the most powerful tornadoes in history. Can you survive? Did you know that tropical hurricanes are actually propelled by Earth's rotation? Luckily, this same force can now be put to good use with Moog globes. These stunning rotating planet models don't need batteries or any plugins, they're powered by Earth's rotation itself. Hidden magnets inside use the slight currents generated by your planet's magnetic field as it spins. That means no more dealing with messy wires. Just a bit of dim light is enough to get your Moog globe spinning. There are now over 40 designs available, featuring planets, moons, and asteroids, and guess what? The graphics are supplied by NASA themselves. I think it's the perfect gift for someone who seems to have everything. Use my promo code RIDDLE1 at mob.com for a 10% discount. All the info you need is in the video description. Now let's learn how to survive a tornado. The so-called Tornado Alley runs through the central states of the United States. This is an area where about 1,200 tornadoes form annually. It covers the territory of 7 states and even the southern part of Canada. There is more than one such alley in the world. Destructive tornadoes are also found in Mexico, Argentina, Uruguay, Australia, China, Bangladesh, South Africa, and Europe. Almost anywhere in the world, tornadoes usually appear suddenly. They cannot be predicted in advance, and in just a quarter of an hour, they can claim dozens of human lives. But where do tornadoes even come from? In fact, a tornado is a huge funnel of wind. Tornadoes form during thunderstorms when cold, dry air meets a mass of warm, humid air. The density of warm air is lower, so cold air flows push it up. Near a thundercloud, air turbulences appear, subsequently becoming a tornado. They can reach 16 kilometers in height. The average width of the funnel at Earth's surface is about 150 meters, but some tornadoes can reach several kilometers in diameter. One of the largest tornadoes in history, with a funnel diameter of about 4 kilometers, swept over the city of Hallam in southeast Nebraska in 2004. It all started with a small tornado that appeared at 7:30 p.m. After a while, the wind force increased, and the tornado reached the farmhouses and tore off the roofs. By 8:35 p.m., the tornado approached the city of Hallam and reached its maximum strength, and its funnel grew to 2.5 miles in width. It demolished the houses of local residents, destroyed agricultural vehicles, and even overturned and blew a coal train off the tracks. As a result, most of Hallam was destroyed. Unfortunately, not all the local residents managed to take cover. One person died, and 38 were injured. The tornado raged for over 100 minutes and during this time covered a distance of 84 kilometers. This is notable since tornadoes usually disappear in 15 to 20 minutes. But although the Hallam tornado was powerful, long, and destructive, it is far from an absolute record. In 1925, one of the longest-lasting tornadoes in history swept over the United States, the Tri-State Tornado. It showed up at about 1 p.m. in Ellington, Missouri, and took the residents by surprise. The tornado quickly gained strength and moved to the northeast, tearing roofs off houses and destroying small buildings. When the tornado approached the Mississippi River, it had already taken 11 human lives. Illinois was next in line. Here, the whirlwind almost completely destroyed 3 cities. More than 600 people were victims of the tornado. But the deadly tornado didn't stop there. The state of Indiana was next. There, it wiped out 3 cities and 85 farms and claimed the lives of 71 more people. The Tri-State Tornado was the longest and deadliest in U.S. history. The tornado lasted for 3.5 hours, covering more than 350 kilometers. As a result, almost 700 people died, 2,000 residents were injured, and tens of thousands were left homeless. The wind speed inside the vortex reached a whopping 480 kilometers per hour, but even this is not the limit. The Bridge Creek Moor tornado broke that dismal record in 1999. This tornado developed the highest wind speed in history, about 500 kilometers per hour. It affected the state of Oklahoma and destroyed over 8,000 homes and 260 enterprises. As a result, 36 people died, and the damage caused by the tornado was estimated at $1 billion. A tornado can appear suddenly, and it can be difficult for meteorologists to predict how strong it will be. But even if a tornado can't be prevented, that doesn't imply we're completely defenseless against it. In 2018 in Wyoming, the most photogenic tornado formed just amidst a heavy thunderstorm. The tornado lasted about 45 minutes, and during that time, dozens of people managed to capture it. Instead of taking cover, people filmed the tornado passing just a few hundred meters away. Fortunately, the Wyoming tornado was relatively weak. It damaged several power lines and fences without causing severe harm to people. But everything could have been different. In 2013, in the same state of Oklahoma, the small town of El Reno was hit by the largest tornado in history. The wind speed inside the vortex reached over 470 kilometers per hour, and the width of the tornado funnel was more than 4 kilometers. But the worst thing is that the El Reno tornado moved chaotically. It was almost impossible to predict the direction of its movement. This is what caused the death of an experienced hurricane hunter, Tim Samaras. He had more than 20 years of experience filming natural disasters. Together with his son and colleague, they also filmed the El Reno tornado. But while the team was looking for a good angle, the whirlwind suddenly changed direction and approached Samaras's car. A mighty wind gust picked up the car and threw it 800 meters to the side. Everyone inside died. If you're caught in a tornado, your chances of surviving are only 1 in 60,000. The most significant danger here is the wreckage. The whirlwind picks up fragments of buildings, trees, and everything in its path and spins it all at an incredible speed. Inside, the tornado looks more like a giant blender than a strong wind funnel. If you're caught by the wind, this debris will pose the greatest danger. In addition, intense hail with hailstones of about 6.5 centimeters in diameter can form inside a tornado. At speeds of several hundred km/h, even such relatively small ice fragments can easily damage the skin and soft tissues. In addition, a tornado can literally pick you up, lift you off the ground, and throw you from a great height, as happened with Samaras's car. But even if by some miracle you remain intact, there's a chance you'll simply suffocate. The fact is that the air density inside the vortex is 20% lower than usual, approximately like that on the top of Mount Everest. You can just lose consciousness from lack of oxygen and suffocate. So, how can you save yourself if a tornado is approaching you? The first step is to find a hiding place. A specially equipped shelter would be perfect, but if it's nowhere near, just hide in the basement of a house. If you don't have one, you can hide in a room that's separated from the street by at least 2 walls and has no windows. A corridor, bathroom, or any other room in the center of the house will work. You can also hide under a heavy table or cover yourself with a mattress. This will help partially protect against debris. If you hear the sound of an approaching tornado, immediately lie face down on the floor and cover your head with your hands. Don't rush to leave your shelter when you realize the tornado is moving away. After all, as you remember, the trajectory of a tornado can be very unpredictable. If your cover is in the affected area, you must leave it very carefully. Pay attention to objects around you, broken power lines or sharp fragments may be nearby. If the building is badly damaged or you're under rubble, it's better to wait for rescuers to arrive and not try to get out on your own. And one more thing, lighting a cigarette to calm your nerves is a bad idea. Remember that a tornado can damage gas pipes, meaning it's better not to use a lighter or matches. But what if a tornado catches you off guard on the street and there's no shelter nearby? If you're in a car, stay in it, fasten your seat belt if you haven't already, and crouch below the window line. At the same time, it's worth covering your back with outerwear or a blanket and clasping your head with your hands to protect yourself from debris. If you're in an open area and there's absolutely nowhere to hide, look for any deepening in the ground, such as a hole or a ditch. Lie face down in it and protect the back of your head with your hands. Try to find something to cover yourself with. These tips can help you survive if a tornado is coming your way, but there are tornadoes from which it's almost impossible to escape. In 2018, a series of massive wildfires engulfed California. They spread over an area of 65,000 square kilometers and led to the deaths of 103 people. But besides the fires themselves, something else was the cause of the destruction. During the evacuation, residents of the city of Reading noticed strange swirling clouds of smoke and flames above the flaming trees. It was a fiery tornado. It ruthlessly uprooted trees, overturned cars, and literally set fire to everything in its path. The U.S. National Weather Service determined that the wind speed in this fiery whirlwind was about 230 kilometers per hour. In fact, a fiery tornado isn't really a tornado. It forms over a fire when the heated air rises and forms vortexes. Usually, such a tornado reaches only 10 to 50 meters and disappears within a few minutes. But sometimes a fire tornado can grow up to 1 kilometer. At the same time, the temperature inside such a vortex rises to 1,000 degrees Celsius. Such tornadoes last for no longer than 20 minutes. A fiery tornado can easily uproot trees up to 15 meters high and spread forest fires for many kilometers. But sometimes such tornadoes can reach cities. In 1871, during steppe fires, a fiery whirlwind destroyed an entire community in the city of Peshtigo, Wisconsin. In 2003, a fire tornado in Australia caused the instantaneous ignition of bushes in an area of 1.2 square kilometers. And in 1923, a fiery whirlwind appeared during the Great Kanto earthquake in Japan. It's believed to have claimed the lives of about 38,000 people in just 15 minutes. And the worst thing is that escaping from a fiery tornado is tough. After all, it's best to hide in the basement or inside the house to protect yourself from a whirlwind. But at the same time, such a tornado can not only destroy your shelter but also provoke a fire. In this case, being in a shelter can be life-threatening. Therefore, in the case of a fire tornado, part of the security measures will have to be sacrificed. If a whirlwind of flames is approaching you, immediately hide in the central part of the house in a room without windows. And as soon as the tornado moves to a safe distance, leave the building immediately. Your task is to get outside as soon as possible before the fire starts. Luckily, fire tornadoes are very rare and dissipate pretty quickly, at least on Earth. In mid-March of 2023, NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory captured a giant tornado of hot plasma raging on the Sun. It reached a height of 120,000 kilometers, which is like 9 of our planets set on top of each other. The tornado lasted about 3 days before crashing back into the Sun. If our Earth got into such a tornado, life on it would come to an end. But what if I say that tornadoes that annihilate all life in their path can also form on our planet? Any sufficiently strong tornado can be deadly, but just imagine how destructive several powerful tornadoes can be all at once. A multiple vortex tornado isn't actually such a rare phenomenon. Typically, multiple tornadoes are much smaller and weaker than normal ones. But don't let this fool you. Their main danger is that such whirlwinds amplify wind gusts. They can increase wind speed by about 160 kilometers per hour. In this case, the damage from the tornadoes themselves can be insignificant, but the powerful wind that accompanies them can wipe out. Entire cities can be devastated by tornadoes. In 2014, a double tornado completely destroyed the small town of Pilger, Nebraska. More than half of the city simply disappeared, and all of the buildings were damaged. Only 350 people lived in Pilger, so large-scale casualties were avoided. However, 2 people died and 16 were injured. Meteorologists were shocked by this phenomenon because the tornadoes in Pilger weren't like an ordinary multivortex tornado. Both whirlwinds were powerful and lasted long enough. If they had met a metropolis on their way, tens or maybe hundreds of thousands of people would have suffered. Now, imagine what as many as 13 concurrent tornadoes could do to a city. This is exactly what happened in the vicinity of Dodge City, Kansas, in 2016. On May 24, a supercell formed over the city. This is a special type of thundercloud that contains a mesocyclone, a deep and persistent rotating updraft. Supercells often lead to the formation of entire clusters of tornadoes. That day, 13 tornadoes formed around Dodge City. Fortunately, the most powerful of them passed over a field without hitting the city itself. The day before, there was a thunderstorm in the city's vicinity, and the ground was wet and heavy. Therefore, the tornado failed to pull the crops out of the ground and harm the farmers. Nevertheless, a state of emergency was declared in Dodge City, and 30,000 residents had to spend that day in shelters. In total, 33 tornadoes were recorded in Kansas that day. The biggest tornado outbreak in history occurred 5 years earlier in the tri-state area, ripping through Alabama, Mississippi, and Tennessee between April 25 and April 28. The National Weather Service recorded 175 tornadoes. Cold air currents from Canada and the western states encountered warm and humid winds from the Gulf of Mexico and dry air from Mexico. As a result, the wind force over the central states increased dramatically due to the contrast in temperature and air density. Dozens of tornadoes, from subtle to destructive and deadly, hit cities and farms. 4 of them were classified as EF5 tornadoes on the enhanced Fujita scale. This scale rates the strength of a tornado based on the wind speed inside the vortex and the degree of damage it caused. An EF5 rating is the highest possible. It means the wind speed in the tornado reached at least 320 km per hour. Tornadoes of this magnitude can lift cars into the air and throw them tens of meters away. An EF5 tornado demolishes brick and frame houses down to the foundation, puts skyscrapers into an emergency situation, and uproots trees. This tornado super outbreak killed 348 people, and the damage from all the tornadoes was more than $10 billion. When dozens of tornadoes are raging all around, the chances that one of them will pick you up increases. The probability of survival in this case is minimal but not zero. In 2006, a 19-year-old boy named Matt Suter found himself sucked up inside a tornado. He was inside a trailer when an EF2 tornado picked him up and lifted him into the air. Matt hit his head on a lamp and lost consciousness. He woke up in the middle of a field with a head injury and badly scratched legs. Fortunately, the guy survived and was able to tell his story later. It turned out that the tornado carried his trailer almost 400 meters from the house. Matt was very lucky that the tornado wasn't very powerful and the whirlwind didn't lift him too high off the ground. In addition, the guy was inside a trailer all the time, and the fragments rotating in the tornado couldn't harm him. But what if a tornado suddenly picks you up off the street? The first thing you feel is being knocked down by the wind current. Then everything around you will darken and spin. You'll feel cold, and it'll suddenly become very hard to breathe. In addition, there'll be a wild noise in your ears, the roar of the wind, and low thunderclaps inside the whirlwind can disorient you. But remember, the main thing is not to panic. First, you need to group up and cover your neck and head with your hands to minimize possible injuries. If you're lucky, after a few tens of seconds, the tornado will throw you back to the ground. In this case, your chances of survival are pretty good, but be prepared for numerous fractures after falling from a height. If you stay in the tornado a little longer, you may pass out from lack of oxygen or collision with a large piece of debris. In this case, you can only rely on luck. The chance of surviving inside a tornado is believed to be lower than hitting a jackpot in the lottery. But if you find yourself among the lucky ones, be prepared for unforeseen consequences. The fact is that tornadoes can travel hundreds of miles, moving not only between states, but sometimes across national borders. The longest recorded distance covered by a tornado is 352 kilometers. If you're lucky enough to get caught in a tornado somewhere in Oklahoma, you might wake up on the Louisiana coast. But I wouldn't rely on luck so much. What about you?